What's going on there, guys? Good morning, good afternoon to some out there. It's the Earthmaster here on this Wednesday. Can't believe the week's almost over here. Wednesday, November 9th, 2022. It's about 10:18 a.m. here along the west coast, and the latest quake shows a 2.8 along the Peru-Chile Trench. Overnight, early this morning, about 2 to 3 in the morning there, we've seen a pretty large uptick in earthquake activity just south of the Fiji Islands region, and this is some big time movement going on down here into the trench areas. Looks like the Kermadec Trench, Tonga Trench region. A lot of earthquake activity ramping up, including a 7.0, the largest one so far in this cluster of large, deep earthquake activity. All of these earthquakes here listed up on the map, except for a 4-pointer down in New Zealand, are well below 600 kilometers deep, with the deepest one being that 7-pointer at 665 kilometers deep. That's some major adjustment going on down there along this area. And I don't think it's over yet. There's a strong possibility that we could be working towards something much bigger in terms of magnitude. I did pull up historical data specifically just within this area. The cutoff line is roughly about here, and you can kind of see it listed up here on the map. Today's earthquake, a 7.0, occurred within this position right here. This is the epicenter. And if you take a look around, most of the 8-pointers, the larger earthquake activity, occurs upstream towards the trench areas, where the locked area is, so to speak, where the pressure is the greatest. And there's been quite a few. I want to bring up the largest magnitudes here and take a look at it. The most recent one in this area, as far as the large activity goes, was an 8.2 back in 2018. That one striking at about 600 kilometers deep, but well up north of today's earthquake. Now, within the region here, we've seen some other ones as noted upstream here, kind of along the trench areas. 8.1 back in 1919. Some further activity back in 2006 with an 8-pointer, and the Kermadec Islands region here back in 1976 seen an 8-pointer as well. And that is just kind of upstream from today's earthquake that definitely sits way down there. Remember, this earthquake activity that occurs here along the subduction zone itself is going to be much more shallower, and then you get the deeper movement here as you head inland, or not inland, but down dip here of the trench. I keep thinking about the Cascadia, but a lot of activity ramping up, and something to watch pretty closely. 1976, the last 8-pointer here. Let me see what we got for recent movement. So aside from today's 7-pointer, 2018 seen a 7.9 way up north. I'm trying to see what's around this area. 7.3 back in 1972. It's going to be this quake right here. 7.8, 2007. 7.2, 1977. See, it doesn't take a whole lot of time to build up enough stress here for a large earthquake. The slip rate here is incredibly high, far as the building up of the tectonic forces within this zone, within the subduction zone. Of course, subduction zones, these trenches here, they create some of the Earth's most powerful earthquakes, and it doesn't really take a lot, again, to build up enough pressure and strain to produce a massive quake. So looking at this map here, a couple seismically vacant areas that we might want to watch. Yes, we have seen some 8s and whatnot around this area, but there's a couple different zones here that are kind of absent, seismic gaps, so to speak, where we could see a much larger earthquake around the Tonga Trench, Kermadec Trench area. And that's something to watch pretty closely, considering we have not seen any other adjustment within the region here If you take a look at the activity across the Western Pacific, Philippine Plate, Java Trench, all these areas here have not shown any type of adjustment following all this deep activity. Look at that. Nada. These earthquakes here around the Philippines are going to be prior to the activity we're seeing there in the Fiji Islands area, or just south of the Fiji Islands into the trench. All older movement throughout this area. That's got me thinking here. And that's basically where most of the activity is kicking off here since this earthquake activity began earlier this morning. Looks like it picked up. Yeah, I thought it was around 3 or so. It looks like the first band of earthquakes kicked in about 1:30 or so my time, 2 o'clock in the morning when I was sleeping. Actually, I did see this come up. Missy Mimi's kind of woke me up and told me about it, but I was too tired to get up and do an update on this. Just way too tired. But worldwide activity, this is the hot spot, the key area right now. And there's a couple different things that can happen. We can see a much larger earthquake activity upstream here, or with all this deeper activity, that could be putting quite a bit of pressure here towards the west. I want to show you guys the general plate movement map here. That's going to be the Pacific plate here. Here is the subduction zone. Got to remember this area with the arrows pointing together, indicating that subduction zone. And there's quite a bit all around the Pacific plate, except for the Southern California area. Actually, it used to be a subduction zone millions of years ago, but whatever's left of that plate that once was is now the Juan de Fuca plate, and that is the subduction zone there, called the Cascadia, into the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. Some divergent boundaries here with the separation of the oceanic crust below here. That's the arrows pointing away. So general plate movement is going to be these arrows here, continental drift, so to speak, and that is putting obviously a lot of pressure here along the subduction zones, but also some areas we may want to watch further south here along the Kermadec Trench and around the New Zealand area. This could be definitely a key time to see what happens following a major event such as what we've seen overnight way down below this area. I can't remember the last time we've seen that type of movement going on around the Fiji Islands area like that, just south of the Fiji Islands, I should say. So we'll watch a couple key areas upstream along the Kermadec Trench here and the Tonga Trench, also New Zealand area. I think if we don't see any activity here, we should see a massive amount of further activity, a large uptick around the eastern portion of the Philippine Plate and across this area here. It's not really going to affect the west coast too much with that deeper earthquake activity because of the general plate movement here. So we'll watch that pretty closely. We haven't really seen, as noted here, we haven't really seen any further movement kicking up here across the region. Let me see what we got for the most recent. Excuse me. I think I woke up with a cold earlier this morning here. What do we got here off the coast of Russia? Looks like a 4.4, 48 kilometers deep. That one did come in up here. And this is the other area that hasn't really seen any sufficient large-scale activity. So that's only getting a little bit more built-up pressure here following this deeper activity. Again, with the general plate movement here, focusing on the subduction zones around the Western Pacific. So not a whole lot of new activity kicking up. This movement across the Philippines and Japan, Himalaya area, Nepal, all this activity here from yesterday, late last night, earlier yesterday afternoon. So we'll watch this pretty closely. This earthquake down in New Zealand kicked up last night at 4.0, 157 kilometers deep into this area of the Hikurangi subduction zone. And that's another one that's little spotty on information when it comes to when the last megaquake happened here in this area, but there's definitely possibility here of the subduction zone seeing a megaquake. I just don't know exactly when the last one was. There's just a little spotty information on it across the net when you're trying to do a search for it. Let's see here. Yeah, so we'll watch these areas. Kind of want to see if we got any smaller microquakes kicking up yet. And it kind of looks like we do. Again, older movement across the Western Pacific and the adjacent plates here across the Philippines. There is a little bit of newer activity here on the Kermadec Trench, New Zealand area listed up in the white circles. Excuse me. Notice that these rings here are much wider than the Fiji earthquakes that happened earlier this morning. Maybe that'll help a little bit with my voice. I think standing out in the rain, barbecuing yesterday, not good. Not the best for trying to stay well. It was cold and windy and rainy. Let's see. Let me bring up the EMSC model here real quick and see what we got for a little bit more data aside from the globe. So let's zoom in here to New Zealand and we'll see what we got here kicking up. So there is definitely a couple earthquakes here. It looks like some of those from today, some from yesterday. But definitely noticing a little bit of uptick here along that North Island, New Zealand area. Following some of that movement, looks like it happened in between some of these larger earthquakes that occurred this morning. So definitely need to watch that New Zealand area there for some potential larger scale activity here. Like I say, right now things are just at a standstill specifically around this area, so it looks like maybe we may see something happen here today on the larger size. Just be prepared. And those quakes there that kicked off, let's take a look at these here. First one that kicked off in this region was a 6.8, and then we had a looks like a 4.9 in the mix as well. That was followed up 1 minute later, just barely 1 minute, not even a minute. Looks like maybe, yeah, okay, maybe about a minute or two. Later, we had that 7-pointer, a little bit deeper this time, 665 kilometers deep. And then about 25 minutes or so, 20 minutes, we've seen another 6.6. And then a couple hours later, a 5.1 in this area. But they're all super deep, folks, with no adjustment here as far as large-scale activity goes, but definitely did see some movement kicking up down here in the North Island, New Zealand area, as listed on the globe and also on the EMSC model. I do want to check out the GeoNet servers here because they are the ones that kind of monitor the activity across New Zealand, and it looks like weak earthquake 2.7, 2.6 around the North Island, New Zealand. Let's see here what we got. Unnoticeable earthquake 41 minutes ago. Couple twos in there. Kind of hard to see with that graph, but you can see them obviously here listed up on the globe. A couple twos and threes and even a 4-pointer. I believe that 4-pointer was the older one though of this mix. So we'll watch that today, folks. I don't think we have to really worry too much about the West Coast right now. There is some activity ramping up around the South America area in the microquake department, quite a few twos and whatnot. Some of that occurring following the activity this morning in the New Zealand, or in the Fiji area, I should say. So we'll definitely watch that. A couple areas here today. Alaska, not a whole lot going on. In fact, nothing within the last hour as far as earthquake activity goes. Yes, we did have Some little small microquakes overnight, I should say, but no major swarming, no major adjustment following that deeper activity down south of here. And about the same for the west coast, the Bay Area. Seeing a little bit of activity outside of the Fairfield area and also around the San Francisco region. A couple small microquakes today in the area. Let's see here. Yeah, all of these look like they're microquakes. A couple off the San Andreas Fault and getting a little bit, excuse me, of swarming out here around the Hammond Island area near Bay Point. There's a couple different fault systems that run through here. Nothing big going on yet. And, of course, activity up here around Clear Lake. That's very typical in that Cobb Mountain area. Ongoing swarm. Let's see if we got anything major noted here. Pretty quiet, awfully quiet across Southern California. We've been noticing that trend, though, last night and today specifically. Not a whole lot lighting up here within the last hour. And I believe that's firmly due to all the activity we've seen this morning near the Fiji area. There's always going to be a little bit of plate tectonics no matter where you're at around the Pacific Ring of Fire. Some very small ones. But no major swarms, no unusual activity, no large movement kicking up there in Southern California or the West Coast for that matter. Yellowstone National Park, a couple earthquakes listed up here. Let's see what we have on the map. Not a whole lot. One earthquake localized here. All of this activity is what took place this morning in the Fiji area. Quite a few earthquakes, those large earthquakes, 6s and 7s, and specifically, if you see an 8-pointer on here, you will know it. It gives a pretty good signature on the graph, a good seismic wave. But all this activity you're kind of noting here within these regions are from the 6s, and it looks like maybe there's a few other earthquakes in there too that didn't get accounted for. But definitely localized activity is not super active here around Yellowstone. Just a couple this morning. It looks like there was some overnight prior to all this activity in the Fiji area. Not a whole lot going on throughout Texas, Oklahoma. Here's a New Madrid zone. Got a couple earthquakes here. Surprisingly, this kicked up after the activity in the Fiji Islands area. 2.4 and a 1.7, roughly about 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning here near the Dell, Arkansas area. The New Madrid zone, of course, sits within this area. Pretty dangerous zone when it comes to the possibility of seeing a large quake. A lot has happened since the last major earthquake activity out here back in the 1800s. So not for sure exactly the slip rate on the New Madrid zone, but who knows? I mean, it's definitely alive and well and still building up strain for the next big one, but I don't think time has passed as far as enough strain being built up in this area, but still something to keep an eye on. These little earthquakes we see from time to time on the New Madrid zone just lets us know that it's still active, still alive, very much alive. Puerto Rico area, a little bit of activity. Looks like this morning as well, 3.7 up around the Puerto Rico Trench. This area has been kind of swarming over the past couple days. Bring up the last 7 days, 2.5 and above, getting a pretty good swarm of activity up here around the Puerto Rico Trench. Now this area here, very capable of producing a large earthquake around the Caribbean plate here. Puerto Rico Trench, definitely one to watch pretty closely. South America, aside from the noted earthquake activity on the globe, nothing really showing up here from the USGS except for a 5.1 in the Ecuador area. Looks like yesterday, but some smaller quakes as noted here on the globe for that area, including a 2.8 that we just chatted about. Another 5.1 looks like coming in to the, there's a mix in there. That 5.1 is kind of hard to tell if it's Actually, it looks like we're starting to pick back up now around the New Zealand area. Let's see what we got. Oh no, there we go. 5.1, I guess it's this one here. That one coming in 0949, so just almost about an hour ago. That's a lot of activity, so just be on guard, folks. New Zealand folks, I know there's quite a few viewers from New Zealand that do watch this channel. The Hikurangi subduction zone, I'm sure folks know about it. Definitely something to watch out there. And that's just not the only area. This Kermadec Trench can throw off quite a few large earthquakes in that area and all around this region here. See, it's a pretty dangerous area in terms of earthquake activity and potential. Let me check tremor activity. That was pretty, that was on the uptick last night and yesterday around the Northern California and Oregon area. This is the Cascadia subduction zone. A little bit larger than the Hikurangi subduction zone and more studied, I should say, in terms of historical data and potential future quakes. 322 years since the last major full rupture, 9.0 on the Cascadia back in 1700. And that's definitely been building up some strain for quite a while. Tremor activity is what occurs down below the subduction zone, down dip about 45 kilometers or so. And we've been seeing a lot of tremor in recent months here. Notice these graphs up here indicating the intervals of large events as far as the amount of tremor that goes on in any given day or month. These intervals here have been getting much closer together over the past year or so. So just kind of watching that pretty closely. I'm kind of curious to see if we have any tremor today or not, following that deep movement into the Fiji area. Let's see what else we got. I believe that's about it. Like I say, all of this is pretty much older activity, except for this one that occurred around the Coral Islands, Coral Kamchatka Trench. And that occurred just shortly after all this activity down south. So we know there's definitely some further strain and pressure built up in this region. And the activity, I should say lack of activity here, has got me a little bit on the worried side because slip rates here are incredibly high. The strain, the forces that it takes to build up a large earthquake, I think are there. It's been there for a little while along this Coral Kamchatka Trench. All right, let's check out space weather real quick, and then we'll move on. Looks like 41, 31, 41 still up on the map for producing a, well, let's see what we got. 55% chance for a C flare, 20% chance for an M flare, X flare at 5% chance. It does harbor a beta gamma class, but this was, let's see, when was this assigned? Doesn't really show, but it did have an M5.2 solar flare back on the 7th of this month. The current image here, let me see what we have. Bring it up. It's still massive, definitely massive on the terms of size, but the complex magnetic field that it once harbored doesn't look like it's there anymore. So we'll still watch it, monitor it. This one as well looks like that's kind of decaying a little bit, and let's say a massive sunspot, but the potential of seeing a large flare just doesn't exist currently with that setup. And we're seeing that across the X-ray flux chart currently. We are crackling a little bit, but not even into the C flare category. The M flare, the M5, that kicked off from that sunspot 3141 a couple days ago. That was the last, pretty much the last event of that sunspot. But we'll continue to watch it pretty closely. No major coronal holes facing us, and the face here on the sun still kind of looking down a little bit. But yeah, no major coronal holes. There's those sunspots. They are facing us currently. No coronal holes. That means that we should see calm conditions here across the board. But it looks like they have a little bit of potential of seeing some unrest in the coming days, I should say, and nights through at least the 10th time frame. Current conditions, though, show pretty calm and minimal conditions with the KP index board. Not a whole lot there of the aurora forecasts on either end of the globe, the Earth. And that's about it. We'll watch it, though, see if anything changes. There's the visible disk of the sunspot. If you have a solar telescope, got to have specifically a solar telescope to view these. Definitely no problem seeing those sunspots today. They're massive, but not a whole lot of potential in the terms of complex fields in their magnetic structure. All right, let's see what else we got. I think that's about it, folks. So just be prepared, stay safe. The New Zealand area, Kermadec Trench, I expect to see things migrate, and hopefully they don't migrate in the New Zealand area, but it kind of looks like it wants to, considering this newer activity following the deeper movement. It only makes sense to watch the Tonga Trench, the Kermadec Trench that extends down here to the New Zealand area, and of course the Hikurangi subduction zone. It's something to watch pretty closely, considering all the deep movement. That's a lot, folks. It's been quite a while since we've seen any major activity like that. Newer earthquakes here in the White Rings following all this activity up north of it. So this area under the gun, watch it pretty closely. And I think it's under the gun for now. So what do we got? 3.1 in Chile area, a little bit of uptick. There's some small microquakes, though. Very very typical of the South America region, though. All right, guys, I'm going to jump off here. Have a good day. Stay safe. A lot of stuff going on right now in the world. Goodness, I don't even know if I want to turn the TV on. Normally I don't watch TV, but social media is even flooding with a lot of stuff going on. The election results and stock markets and cryptocurrency crashes and all sorts of stuff. So don't know what's going on out here today. Pretty crazy. Good day to stay inside and I don't know, keep the blinds closed. All right, folks, have a good day. Stay safe. We'll catch you guys a little bit later on, unless something major happens. Again, keep an eye, watchful eye on the New Zealand area, Kermadec Trench region, and Tonga. Have a good one. Peace out.